All righty. Well, hey, why don't we jump in? That way we get to everybody out of here on time at 8:15, because you guys need your beauty sleep. That's for sure. But how about them Bengals, right? Anybody watch the Bengals game? Yeah. It's looking a little dicey, wasn't it, folks? I don't know about you, but I'm like a Hope Springs Eternal Bengals fan. So I went online, bought my Super Bowl tickets already. I'm like, they're 1-3. They got this back together. Anybody else take a collective gasp when Joe Burrow hurt his leg that first quarter? I was just waiting for it, man. Well, welcome. Glad you guys are here. Welcome if it's your first time here at Authentic Manhood. I know there's some guys that weren't able to make it last week and are here this week, so glad you guys are here. It's not too late to jump in. You haven't missed anything we can't catch you up on. And then guys who were here last week, welcome back. It's good to see all your smiling faces. Yeah. You guys have all gotten more handsome and distinguished since last week, so good to see you. So quick poll. I've been thinking about Cincinnati sports, all right? So you only get to vote once. You can only vote once, all right? So what would excite you the most if this were to happen in your lifetime? Okay, and we'll vote one at a time. So we'll wait. It'll either the Bengals win the Super Bowl, the Reds win a World Series, or FCC wins an MLS Cup. Okay, so let's go Bengals first. You don't have to vote on your phone. We'll just show hands. You can if you want to, but, let's go Bengals win the Super Bowl. That would make you ecstatic? Okay, nice. That's probably the majority of us. Let's go the Cincinnati Reds win the World Series. Wow. I think I am more likely to win the World Series than the Reds here in our lifetimes, because it's been hard to be a Reds fan lately. And then how about FCC? Any FCC fans? Okay. I think they might be the closest, let's be honest, to winning a championship. So being a Cincinnati fan's tough. We all get that. But interesting to see. I guess most of us are Bengals fans, followed by Reds, and then FCC, which is a little surprising, but good enough. Well, hey, quick recap. So, again, some guys are new from last week. Some guys are here that were here last week. And if you're like me, you forget stuff sometimes the minute you walk out of the door. So this session of Authentic Manhood is about overcoming obstacles that we face in our lives, right? And last week we talked about how there's lots of external obstacles that have big bullseyes on them, and we know what they are. It's that person we don't like. It's that issue at work. It's that politician that makes us angry, right? Those are the external obstacles, that we can we can go off about them forever. But we talked about how we're going to talk about internal obstacles. And last week I set up this idea for you that we each have these 3 internal drives in us as men, specifically of control, significance, and comfort. And these are things, you could use a few words: drive, desire, motivation. There's these things that are written on the hard drive of our souls as men that aren't bad intrinsically, but they can be bad if they're taken to the nth degree, right? That's kind of where we went last week. And I'm wondering, if you were here last week, hopefully what you left thinking about was well, which one of these is me mostly, right? Which one of those do I struggle with, if I'm being honest? And we didn't really get to that question, but I wanted to start with giving you a question to think about. And again, these are the drives. They're down here. They drive our actions, our thoughts, our feelings, kind of like an iceberg. But this is the question I think will help you get to that. Which one is me? Is what do I worry about the most? So as you think of your life and the times where you wake up at 3 in the morning and the stuff just starts playing in your head, right? That happened to me last night. Daughter had homecoming, didn't get home till 1:30, did not sleep good. And I'm just laying there thinking about all kinds of stuff, and worry is just going around in my head. That if I worry the most about control, things about control, oh man, what's going to happen with this, and what if this person does this, and what, then probably yours is control. If you worry the most about significance, does this person value me? At work, do they even see the contribution I'm making? Do they believe in me? Do I have significance? Then that's where you're at. And then comfort is an easy one, right? If you're always worried about, what you're going to eat for dessert, then maybe yours is comfort. Okay, so that's kind of how it helped me to get to the bottom of mine. And I would say mine's probably significance, just in full honesty there. But I want to start tonight by warming up a little bit, okay? So I'm not going to make you get up and do any exercises or anything, because we'd need a chiropractor here and some orthopedic surgeons probably by the end of this. But I'd love for you to warm up around your table with a sharing time, okay? And it'll be a quick one. I'm thinking like 4 or 5 minutes. And I want you to share the best thing to happen to you in the last 7 days, okay? And this could be something amazing, right? Like there's some of us that are, I'll get to that too before we do that. There's some of us maybe in this room that maybe you had a kid in the last 7 days. I mean, kudos to you for showing up at this if you did. Maybe it's something amazing. You retired, you bought that yacht or your second yacht, you know, whatever it is. Or maybe it's small. Like you're like, I had an amazing ham sandwich at McAllister's, and it made my day, man. That's what you're going to share about. But first, something I forgot to do last week is you may not know this, but secretly in our midst, okay, there are these superheroes that don't wear capes, all right, that your table has a table host at it. Don't know if you knew that, but we actually like met and trained and thought, and I got good input from them about how to, you know, lead this thing. So if you're a table host, just slide your hand up kind of awkwardly, like, look at me, I'm a table. Okay. So these guys, there's nothing amazingly special about them, you know, other than they're just willing. They're all handsome, of course. But they're table hosts, so they're kind of here to just like help things keep moving. Because as dudes, we all don't want to just sit there and stare at each other when somebody's done talking and has nothing to say. On that note, on your tables, I've been thinking this week, and I was like, what could we do that when your table's done sharing, I would know, so I don't have to keep saying, hey, are you guys done, doctor? Are you, right? Just hit this. So table hosts, when you're done at your table and you're like, we've ran this pony's dead, I'm ready to move on to something else, just click your button and then turn it off when we're done, all right? So you're going to share for about 4 or 5 minutes. What's the best thing to happen to you in the last 7 days? Go. Are you good? You're good. Okay. Because you're a big table. So if you're done. All right, we're going to jump in. If you didn't get to share, you know, just journal about it later. You know, somebody will hear that. So what's been going on over the last 7 days? Who has something that was awesome? So Nelson, we actually have another. No, you got to talk in the microphone.
It rained.
It rained, right?
Rained.
So, yay, we all get to mow our lawns again, Nelson. That's great. Yeah. Somebody else. What about your table? What was something awesome at your table, Art? Did you have something awesome? All right, Art, you got to talk into the microphone.
Well, last Saturday was my birthday. I'm 74, and my wife and I have Bible study every night, and we were in Hezekiah, and we have been trusting God to give us 15 more years like he gave Hezekiah. You know, Hezekiah was the grandson of David, King David. He's a king. And so that was so neat. And then later this week, I got to drive a Cybertruck, and it's just phenomenal.
Nice.
So that was fun.
That's cool. That's good. Somebody else. John Kirby, what about your table? What was awesome at your table? Anything? That's all right. You got a lot of guacamole there.
One of our guys went to man camp in the rain with 3,000 guys. And
Josh Brock.
Yep.
Have you showered yet? Yes.
Yes.
That's good to know. Andy's like, thank you, Lord. Yeah. Okay, so man camp. I can't wait to catch up. Hear about that, Josh. Nice. Let's go one more awesome thing over the last 7 days. The best thing to happen to you. Yeah, we'll go over here somewhere. Brendan. Can't be the Bengals winning, okay? Because that's a low bar when you beat the Panthers. All right?
No, my son is on the autism spectrum, and so any small accomplishment of his is just really stokes me. And he was able to, not this last week, but recently, he was able to complete a purchase of his first car.
Nice.
So a lot of those things create anxiety in him. So
that's awesome.
Cool.
AJ is fantastic. So he was in high school when I first got here. One of my favorites. A lot of fun. Well, cool. Well, thanks for sharing with each other. I think as dudes, we don't probably do that a lot, but it's good to celebrate even the ham sandwiches, you know what I mean, which sometimes are terrific. Well, why don't we jump in? So tonight we're going to dig a little deeper And again, we're going to keep living in the world. I mean, this whole session is on these 3 words. So if you don't like them, I apologize, because we're going to be looking at them every week. We're going to go deeper. We're going to turn it a little bit, look at it from a different facet. But we're trying to get to the idea of, like, what are these internal things that might keep us from living our best life, right? These obstacles that, whether we know they're there or not, they're there, right? Well, as you think of these 3, I think of, have you guys ever had a friend that's like really, really into something, right? Like, has anybody ever had a CrossFit friend? Anybody had one of those CrossFit guys where it's like this? And everything is about CrossFit, right? Like, you're at lunch and CrossFit comes up. You're at dinner, CrossFit comes up. And CrossFit's great. Okay, no, I'm not throwing any stones at CrossFitters in here because you'll kill me. You're at a funeral, CrossFit comes up, right? Like, that sometimes there's this thing that happens in life where something that can be even good, when it goes to an extreme, can start to become kind of annoying and bad, right? Like, do you have any friends that are all about, like, politics and that's all they talk 24 hours a day? And you're like, dude, I just wanted to get a coffee. I have a friend that's really into AI, and it's so bizarre to me that he brings up AI in, like, every conversation. I'm like, I don't know how that has anything to do with your puppy, but let's move it on. Well, I think we're all aware of kind of this idea that there's good things that can become not so good when we make them the main things. Okay, and last week we kind of shied away from using the word idols because I didn't want to come out of the gate using a super religious-y sounding word. We've used desires, motivations, drives. But really, when it boils down to it, it's like there are these 3 things inside of us that aren't bad at face value, but when we get all about them, right, they become an idol. And all an idol is it's basically just a functional God, lowercase g, in our life. That just kind of becomes what we're living to serve. And for some of us, it's control. For some of us, it's significance. And for some of us, it's comfort. It becomes a functional God in our lives. And here's the way to think of it is, like, if this is you, as you thought about what do I worry about the most, what scares me the most, if it is control, well, then that's kind of the God that you're living for and sort of serving every day without thinking about it, right? You're waking up, it's helping drive every decision you make. Is that, how can I maintain control of this relationship, this situation, this person often, right? Significance, it plays out the same way. And here's the problem, though, is they make really lousy gods, idols, right? Things that we make. They make broken, terrible gods to serve because they're lifeless. They can offer us nothing, all right? And really that sets up kind of what Christianity has to say about all of life, is that really all of life boils down for every man, woman, and child ever born to, like, 2 ways to live. That we either live serving God, right? That you, like, get to a point where you're like, okay, I'm in on that. Okay, I believe it. In my head, I believe it analytically. In my heart, I've experienced it. I'm going to try to serve God, right? And I always tell people it's way more about direction than it is perfection. That it's like heading towards Columbus, and there's going to maybe be some off-ramps sometimes. You're going to have a flat tire here and there. You're going to run out of gas sometimes. Sometimes you're going to wreck, right? But you're going to get to Columbus more than it is perfection. Or we create our own gods, which sometimes, like I said, could be control, significance, or comfort. But a lot of times, if we're being honest, our own gods are really just us, right? That, like, I serve me. Well, my default setting is me. I wake up and I think about me, and I wish my wife would go get me a coffee. Like, that's the default setting, but it makes terrible, terrible gods to serve. Anybody know what this is? Can you guys see the TV? We need like 4 TVs out here so you guys can actually see it instead of big old me in the way here. What is that? It's a cistern. Yes, that one's not a septic one. What else do we use cisterns for? Water. Has anybody ever lived somewhere with a cistern? Okay. So in college, I lived in this farmhouse down on Gunpowder Road in Kentucky, okay? And there was like 7 of us guys, and it was literally like a not abandoned isn't the right word, but not a fully functional farmhouse, right? Like no one was supposed to be living in there. Because eventually they built this huge church on the property called Grace Church, which exists today. But it was this old farmhouse. It had a septic water system, okay, and it leaked. And we were a bunch of knucklehead 20-somethings. And what happens when the water runs out of the septic system when you're in, say, the shower? Any ganders, guesses? Your hair is all soaped up, right? I use a lot of shampoo. You're just scrubbing your hair, and then the water just starts trickling, and then it just completely turns off because you're out of water. Well, God's going to use this analogy of cisterns to help us understand this like two ways to live life. Either you're going to like serve me, or you're going to serve these gods that you kind of make up. Okay, so we're going to look at a Bible verse that explains that. I think will help us take that next step from like, here's these three things we all feel, but what makes them bad? All right, so this is in Jeremiah. Somebody want to read it? I don't need that. Somebody want to read it for me? I'm brave souls. Art? Are you pointing at somebody? Or are you? Okay, all right.
I'm studying in Jeremiah.
Okay, is it on?
For my people have committed two evils. They have forsaken me, the fountain of living waters, and hewed out cisterns for themselves, broken cisterns that can hold no water.
Thanks, Art. That was good. Yeah, well. Red button doesn't seem like it's good news, but we'll just go with it. Okay, so God's saying, hey, my people, they've done two things, okay? And don't get tripped up on the evil word. You know, I know it. Basically, you can mistakes, bad decisions, bad choices. I don't know. You see if there's more batteries for that, Austin. Thanks. So he's saying they've forsaken me, the fountain of living waters. And I want to do something real quick. Okay, I want us to all get really quiet, and I want you to listen. Besides the fan, can you hear something? The fountain, right? It's just out there pumping away, nonstop, just bubbling up water. Think of like if you've ever been to, the last week down in North Carolina, South Carolina, if you've ever been into the mountains and there's mountain streams that just run, this living water that's just flowing, it's running. It's alive. He's saying, you've forsaken me, right? Like, I don't want to serve that God. And instead, you've created your own God in these broken cisterns, which we'll do a little fun visual here in a minute. So you've forsaken me, the fountain of living waters, and you've hewed out cisterns for themselves, but they're broken and they can't hold water. So it kind of looks like this. We'll do a little fun visual. Hopefully I won't electrocute myself. That'll make your night pretty enjoyable, at least exciting, right? So God's saying, like, hey, I am living water, right? Like, so whether that's the fountain out there you're thinking of, I try to get hose all the way out of here, but that's a lot of hose there, Chris. God's like, this is me, man. I'm here. I'm living water, pouring out. I'm all you need. Drink it in. And we're like, no thanks, God. I'm going to create this own thing that holds water for me. And we pour in life, And at first it works right? It's like, it's working pretty good. I'm feeling pretty enjoyment here in life and marriage. And then we keep pouring in life. But the cistern is broken, right? Like it's got cracks and holes in it. We're all broken people, even at our best, right? And some of us are more broken like me, and some of us are less broken like Chris. But we're broken. So if we make things in our life our God, these cisterns, they run dry. And we find ourselves thirsty. So here's what I want you to do. Don't step in that till it absorbs. But in your group, I want you to share, and this one will go about 7 minutes. I'd love for you to share. Can you think of a time in your life where you experienced a broken cistern, where you really put hope into this thing? Whether maybe it was a job, a relationship, maybe it was just next chapter in life, right? Like I can think of 3 or 4 people right now who have recently retired and then learned they have a major illness, right? And you're like, what the heck? I worked 40 years, 50 years, I'm retiring, and now all of a sudden I'm supposed to travel and so that's what I want you to do. Around your table, have each guy share what's something in your life that you found to be a broken cistern that you thought would fill up, would bring you life, would hold water, but in the end it really didn't. All right. Said 7. I gave you 13. Holy cow. You guys are oversharers. I love it. Who is brave enough, maybe, you don't have to go into all the nitty-gritty details. You don't have to cry, Will, if you don't want to. But, like, who's brave enough to maybe share something, even without going into great detail, just a cistern maybe that you experienced in your life? Anybody have one? And don't out somebody at your table. Don't be like, Andy said this, and this is tragic, and he never wanted everybody to hear that. But is anybody brave enough on your own to be like, hey, here's one that I encountered in my life that I'm willing to share? Dave. Thanks for bailing me out, Dave. I appreciate that.
I think for me, it's expectation was my cistern that you think. I did some of my best parenting before I had kids. And so you get to that point where you have these expectations of here's how it's going to be, and then it's not. And when you place the faith in that, it puts stress and strain on the entire house.
It's a good one. That's a good one. I can relate. I knew how my teenagers would act until they became teenagers. And it's gotten a little more challenging. Anybody else? Thomas Maximus Aurelius Wagner. I'm not sure about those middle names, but I like them.
You know, we have a lot of romantics at our table, probably many of the tables that you remember being a teenager in love, and maybe sometimes you still have found yourself using that as a cistern. So we had some wisdom at the table, you know, where the relationship itself, that romantic relationship, goes beyond us being there for each other, but more of you're expecting that this person is your absolute everything, that this is the person that's going to, you know, completely fill your soul, my soulmate, this sort of talk. So the 2 quotes I even wrote down from the table: remember yourself because that's what she fell in love with. You can't completely lose yourself in the relationship, and you can't find your purpose in life through this person, through her. Just be cautious about it. It's great to be in love, you know. It's great to have a funny honey, but you gotta still have your own thing going in several different areas of life, with your faith, with your work, and keep her there as well to support and love. But I've seen many people. Maybe we've all fallen into that trap or cistern of that's where we put all of our eggs in that basket.
Yeah, thanks. So you guys are a bunch of romantics. I like it. Yeah. Yeah, I think people, good general rule of thumb, people will make terrible cisterns, right? Like if you're looking to one person to complete you, fill you, Jerry Maguire was full of crap, right? Like there's no you complete me with some woman where your life's going to be like, it's amazing. Every day for the next 70 years, I wake up and all I think about is how much I love you, right? Like I don't know about your marriage, but that's not my marriage 22 years in. We're in love, but it doesn't feel like Jerry Maguire, all right? But here's what I would say, is as you think of your marriage, and this is free. This isn't even in my outline, okay? Bonus material. As you think of your marriage, right? And maybe you're not married, but maybe you were. Maybe you hope to be someday. Like, they're all broken in their own ways, but if we continue to fill them, even though they're leaking, they continue to stay pretty full. You know, so what I found is that when I water my marriage and I keep pouring into it, then it tends to stay pretty full, even though it leaks, because we're two broken and pretty, you know, sinful people, to use a spiritual term. So that was free. You know, take that for whatever. Try not to get electrocuted there. Any other? One more cistern. Somebody else have a cistern, and they're like, man, I experienced this. Patrick. We go Patrick and Tim if you're quick, you know.
We all talked about career goals and money goals and buying toys, you know, boats and motorcycles, and kind of chasing money or chasing stuff.
Yeah.
How it's fun, but not for that long. It doesn't really fill us up. So.
Yeah, right? Like I can't tell you the number of things that I've thought about, researched, dreamt about, like should it be this guitar or this guitar, or what about these shoes, or, you know, like I think we all do that. You're getting a new laptop, you're researching it, you know, and then you get it, and like a week later, you're like, it's just my laptop. Don't care about it. You know, like it's crazy. Tim Kennedy, finish us out. Last cistern.
Well,
For me, my system would be control. Just as I get older, trying to just wrap my head around things and just control things. That leads to anxiety of things that I shouldn't be anxious about. But we went into a little deeper conversation around our table, how it's amazing how we do have these cisterns, but God gives us his free will, and yet we know we should depend on him and trust in him, as we talked about, but we create these cisterns, these broken cisterns, and we're like, why are we doing this? Because it's not the way God intended for us to live, is what our conversation went around.
It's good. It's good. So we got the romantics, and then we have like the deep theologians here. I like it. Nice. Well, thanks for sharing that, guys. I appreciate you being vulnerable at your tables and then even being vulnerable here in the group. Because I think as guys, sometimes we assume everybody else has it figured out when really most of us are kind of figuring it out as we go a lot of times in life, if we're being honest. So one thought I want you to, let me figure out how to use this little remote. In your book, because I want to fill in a couple of blanks, Page 28, number 5, idols lure us away from the best God has for us in his grace. So again, even of what Tim just shared is like perfect, the idol of control. Like really when God made us, he told us lots of things in the Bible like, hey, don't worry about tomorrow because tomorrow has enough to worry about itself. Or hey, look at the sparrows and how I take care of them, or the flowers in the field and how they grow. Like you don't need to worry. But then when we make control an idol, all of a sudden we're trading the best that God has for us, right? Like a life free of just tons of anxiety and stress. We're trading the best that God has, not anxiety and stress, for anxiety and stress. That's a great word, Tim. Okay. So let's think about Adam, all right? So we all know Adam, right? Like Adam and Eve, they go together. Who wants to give me a brief, 30-second Cliff Notes synopsis of Adam? So the original man. You were just saying this isn't how it's supposed to work. It's not how we were supposed to be created. The bad news is it's been happening since the dawn of time. Every man ever born. Who wants to be my pocket theologian here and be like, this is what happened to Adam? Mark Urton? I mean, come on. You got the wisdom, the brain, the looks. No? Okay. Hey, you got this, Mark. I believe in you. Okay, hold on. You're good. You got this.
I got it. Thank you. I appreciate it.
I know him or I wouldn't do that.
Men listen to women, and we all are not perfect anymore.
Well, that's the deep take on it. Just give me the give me the play-by-play of what happened. Who is Adam?
Adam was created by God first human in the garden. He was perfect. He had perfect fellowship with God, perfect fellowship with animals. We all know that dogs were there, cats weren't in the garden. That's because of sin. So, and then
preach.
That's right. And then suddenly they discover God says there's one tree right here in the middle, and if you eat from this tree, things are going to go bad. Eve gets tempted because men are dumb. We listen to women, and we got tempted, and we fell the garden.
Yeah, Adam's standing right there by her like a slack-jawed yokel.
Are you going to give me the microphone again?
What's that?
You're going to give me the microphone again?
If you want it, you can take it home. You have to wrestle Austin to get out of here, but that's a good synopsis, Mark Urton. Thank you very much. So we all know that, right? Like we know the story of Adam. We know that he's the first man. We know he's the first man to sin. That story, when you read it in the original, he's right next to Eve. So sometimes it's easy to be like, that stinking wife, she just gets him in trouble. But really, he's just there next to her watching it happen and just silently nodding. I'm going to enjoy that apple, but let her eat it first. Right? That's what he's thinking. But think about Adam for a minute. Okay, I don't know if this is sunk in on you, the craziness of this. Okay, so imagine Adam's life. All right? You're the first man ever made. You're living in paradise. Everywhere he looks in the Garden of Eden, food is growing, okay? The Bible basically says like every type of plant, fruit, vegetable is growing around him, all right? So it's like walking through Golden Corral, just pulling things off the plants, minus the hepatitis that you get at Golden Corral, okay? Like it's glorious, all right? And then his big stressful job, right? We all got jobs probably you're going to tomorrow, right? Or maybe not. If you're retired, your job is just being awesome. I'm jealous. His big job was naming animals. Think about that. He went to work every day and looked at that thing, and he's like, look, it's got a long nose, flappy ears, and it goes, "Boo-hoo! I'm going to call it an elephant. You're an elephant." Right? Like, that's his big, stressful job, okay? And then, here's the kicker, okay? He's married to the hottest woman on earth, okay? Like, literally, he's the only guy that can, like, say that on Facebook and mean it, right? It's my wife's birthday. She's the hottest woman. You know, all the cheesy things you guys post. I see it. He could actually say it, and it was true. He's married to the hottest woman on earth, and they walk around naked all day. Right? Like, what do married people do when they're naked? Like, that's happening all day long while eating like a watermelon and some grapes and then a baked potato, right? I'm pretty sure they had fire. And it leads me to like one question, okay, that I think relates back to what Tim's table of theologians shared. And it's a one-word question. How? Right? Like, how does he ultimately fall? Like, how is that not enough? Like, what else was he longing for? And the question is that it's never enough, right? That's the nature that God's telling us here in Jeremiah 2:13, that every man who's ever been born is tempted with this desire to have a God that says, hey, just serve me and love me, and I'm going to serve you and love you, and I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to provide everything you need. And we're like, sounds good sometimes on Sundays when the Bengals win, but other times not so much. I'm going to go my way, right? Like, it just blows my mind that Adam did what he did, but at the same time, I can totally relate with it because I think God's looking down at me and asking the same question, like, how, Ryan? How's it possible that you're not happy? Like, what else do you want? And every time there's something on my list. And every time I get it, it doesn't quite scratch the itch. But let's dive a little deeper into old Adam here, all right? So on page 29, it says, Adam bought into the original lie, which is the foundational lie for all idols, that we must go around God and away from God rather than to God to meet our deepest needs. So that's the original lie that I think lives in all of our hearts, is that like God's like, hey, I can meet every need that you have. And we're like, yeah, but not this one. That's what we're all battling against, every man that's ever been born. Whether you're in your 70s or your 20s, that's the struggle. It says in the little graph there on page 29, it says, these are the like appeals that Satan, makes to Adam to kind of get him to buy into this, or to Eve actually. But he says, you'll be like God, which, as you think about it, is an appeal to two of our drives, right? That's an appeal to control. Like, if you'll be like God, you'll be in control, Eve, Adam. And then significance, right? Like, you'll be like the big guy. Like, you eat this fruit, it's going to be good stuff here. And then the appeal to comfort. The fruit is a delight, appealing to Adam's comfort. Number 2, page 29, the lie offered by the deep idols, again, control, significance, comfort, that there's a better way than what God has provided. So that's kind of the synopsis here of chapter 2 of our book, is this idea of like, man, we feel these things in us. They drive us a lot of times. Sometimes they're good drives, right? It's good to be in control. Like, if you're not in control when you're driving a car, it's going to end poorly. You're not in control of your finances, it's going to end with you homeless, right? Like, control's good, but to the nth degree, control becomes bad. That's the synopsis of the story. But we're going to end with a little sharing time, okay, around your table. And here's what I want to propose to you, is that, like, if there's a better way that God's offering for control, significance, and comfort in our lives, well, what is it? Like, is it just coming to church, coming to Horizon, listening to idiots on microphones like myself, eating chips and salsa, drinking sparkling water? Is that what God's asking me to do? I think it's more than that. And what I want you to think about around your table and talk about is 3 alternatives. And maybe if you're sitting here and you're like, man, my issue is control, and I know it. I'm not going to tell my wife I know it because she would tell me that it's control, right? Like, or maybe you're sitting here like, mine is significance. Like, I just need people to know I'm important. I need to know I'm valued. If I don't get a whole lot of attaboys, then I'm struggling. Or maybe it's comfort, right? Like, comfort's a huge one, and comfort's a wide one. It's not just like you like laying on couches. It's like you're trying to medicate yourself in 1,000 different ways, right? From food to porn to drugs to alcohol to Netflix to name it, right? Well, what I'm going to ask you to consider around your tables is the alternative. That like if God's saying, hey, those are idols and those aren't going to really help you live a great life, well, then what is he offering? Okay, so I want to throw out to you 3 of them. And here's what I would say is like, even if you don't believe all of this, like maybe you're here tonight and you're like, I don't know what I think about God. That's awesome. That's why we exist here at Horizon. Like that's literally in our vision, mission statement, all of it. It's like we exist for you to explore. But I would ask you to like, the same way when you're watching a movie and there's like crazy stuff happening, like aliens and, nutty stuff, and you suspend your disbelief, right? We're like, hey, for a minute, I'm going to pretend that Chewbacca could exist, right? Because he's awesome. Well, I'd ask you, even if you're not quite sure you believe, just suspend your disbelief for 10 minutes around that table and suppose, what if? Like, would you be willing to consider if control is your thing, this alternative that God offers? If significance is your thing, this alternative that God offers. If comfort is your thing, this alternative that God offers. Right? All right, this is what we're finishing with. So we'll go to this question. You guys got about 10 minutes. Have at it. Okay. Yeah, okay. So here's what I want you to tie about, or to think about. I just told you that they relate to these things. But like as you think of these, what does that alternative maybe look like? Right? Like what's the difference between maybe your relationship with control right now and what God's offering here and his relationship with control with our life? As you think about significance and how you might try to find significance now, what's the alternative that God's offering? Do you buy it? Do you think it's feasible? Would it make a difference? Right? Just kind of toss them around is what I'm getting at. So table hosts, this is where you're going to earn your money, all right? We'll double your paycheck, okay? Because you're just going to have to help lead some of this conversation. But I want to give you guys every week at least a little bit of application to like go home with, not just like, oh yeah, it does suck. Those things do exist in me. Cool to think about. This is the offer, I think, from God of like, hey, don't serve the idols of control, significance, and comfort. Instead, here's what I'm offering. And to me, it's a commitment, it's a humbling, and it's a coming to me. So have at it. Just hit your little light when you're done. All right. We got to wrap it up. We got 2 minutes left. I'm a stickler on getting you out of here on time. Sorry. So hey, let's close our time. You guys are always welcome to hang out and talk afterwards at your table as well. We are not going to kick you out of here at any given moment. I just know some of you, 8:15 is the deal, and you're like, that's the deal I made, was 8:15, Ryan. Sunday Night Football is coming on in 15 minutes. So here's what I just wanted you to think about as we leave today, is maybe if your idol, your drive that you relate with the most is control, what would it look like to let God establish your plans? Like just that one verse, right? Again, maybe you believe this, maybe you don't. Maybe you could suspend the disbelief and just say, hey, God, if you're there, if you're real, like, hey, I'm going to commit this to you, and I'm not going to have to, like, control it and squeeze it and make it, like, my precious, Like, you don't have to do that. Like, let him establish the plans. You don't have to squeeze the life out of it. Or maybe if yours is significance and you're always looking for that pat on the back and wondering if you matter, if you have value, if you have meaning, a lot of times that drives us in a certain way. What would it look like to be lifted up by God through humility? Right? I would imagine if most of us think of the best leaders that we've ever served under, that there's this thing called level 5 humility, which sets them apart from every other leader. And the good, the great. Anybody read the Jim Collins book? Like that's level 5 humility. Like that's the thing that sets them apart from a good leader to a great leader. man, what would it look like to let God give you significance, to lift you up? And then next time you're seeking comfort, what would it look like to have a conversation with God? Again, no matter where you are on this, like, hey, God, this sucks, right? Like, why is this happening? Like, those are perfectly legitimate prayers. Like, I don't like this. This hurts. I don't know what to do in this situation, right? What I found is, like, that is way more comforting to me than, like, any of the other things that I mentioned. The other things are short-lived and they're medicating, and they don't last very long, right? Like, you don't feel very good at the end of the other things. You eat 5 pieces of pizza, you're not feeling too good the next day, right? Like, this is delicious, but it doesn't help you. Well, next week we'll continue, so we'll be in chapter 3. Next week we'll have Saratoga chips and barbecue sauce from 50 West. Okay, so every week we'll have some snacks. The first week we had wings and beer. The last week we'll have Mios and beer. Okay, and in between we'll have kind of these kind of table snacks. But let me pray for us. Thank you guys for coming. Have a great week. God, thank you just for these men. I thank you that you know each of us by name. You know what's going on in our lives, in our hearts. Help us to turn to you and not look for life in broken places. I think we all could list areas that we thought were going to hold water and bring us life and fulfillment, and then they didn't. So I just pray you'd give us the courage to turn to you in those moments. Give these guys great weeks and whatever they have in front of them. In your name, amen. Great. Have a great week, guys. Thank